There are 3 types of people who should be watching this video. People who listen to music each day, people who work for 4+ hours a day, especially if you do some kind of knowledge or mental work, and people who just want to know how to use music to make their work and life more productive. By the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what music does to your brain and body, exactly which music to use to maximize your focus for each different type of work, and exactly how to use music to motivate yourself to get things done. I'll also leave you with some action steps so you know exactly how to take the science behind music and implement it to make your life more productive. Here is what you think happens when you listen to music. You put on binaural beats whilst you work and somehow 45 minutes goes by in a complete flow state. Maybe you play hype songs on the way to the gym and somehow find yourself ready to hit PBs. Or maybe you put on a sad song when you're in a bad mood and 15 minutes later you're in the middle of that breakdown that you really needed. This is what you see and experience, but there's a lot more going on beneath the surface. Music isn't just something that we hear. When we play those binaural beats or hear that hype song, 4 key areas of our brain are activated. The first is our prefrontal cortex. This controls our planning, judgment, self-awareness, and most importantly, making predictions. As we listen to a song or we pick a playlist, our brain starts making guesses. It tries to guess which song will come next or which melody we might hear. If we guess wrong, then this creates a sense of novelty, and novelty releases dopamine in our brain, a driver of motivation. So simply listening to music can increase our levels of motivation. The second area of our brain that's activated is the amygdala. This is a small part of our brain, but it has a big job in controlling our stress, our emotions, our heart rate, and our breathing. So because music activates the amygdala, it means that it can completely change our brain to make us more alert and focused, or put us into a state of calm, and we can use these to control our mood and our emotional state. Third, we have our hippocampus, and if you are listening to this right now, then your brain is putting all of this information into your short-term memory. Your hippocampus is what transfers this into your long-term memory. It's how we actually learn and remember things. So when music engages the hippocampus, it leads to improved memory formation, emotional regulation, and neuroplasticity. As someone with a terrible memory who learns a lot, this has been an absolute game changer for me. Fourth, we have our basal ganglia and our cerebellum. These 2 brain areas combined control almost all of your movement. They send signals to your body based on inputs that they receive that make you want to move. It's why you feel more energized on the way to the gym when that song comes on. It's also why you feel more relaxed when you play that sleeping music. Our brains do all of this completely unconsciously. We don't even have to think about it. So really think about this. You have a device in your pocket, probably in your hands right now, that can play any kind of music that you want. You also have a brain that is wired to react to that music. So imagine how much more productive you would be if you knew exactly how to pair the right music with the right task to increase your productivity and your focus. That is what we're going to dive into today. Deep work is our hard but high value tasks. It's mentally demanding and requires intense concentration. So things like writing a book, blog, social media post, or essay. It also includes tasks like analyzing data, preparing a presentation, strategic planning, and high stakes creative work. This is the work that adds up over time to completely change your life, and there are 3 types of music that we can use to help make this work easier. The first is binaural beats, and you've probably heard the hype around these, the alleged secret weapon for supercharging your productivity. But what exactly are they, and do they actually help you focus? Binaural beats are basically our brain's way of combining 2 different frequencies of sound. So if we take 40 Hz binaural beats, then one ear is hearing a lower frequency of 300 Hz and the other one is hearing a higher frequency of 340 Hz. Your brain combines these frequencies to create a new one of 40 hertz, and this is something that you can only hear in your head. It's why you have to listen to binaural beats with headphones. It doesn't happen externally, it's only when your brain hears them, one in each ear, and combines them. This new frequency is called a binaural beat, and here is where it gets interesting. The specific frequency of these beats, so whether it's 15, 30, or 40 hertz, actually influences the way that our brain functions and our emotional state. This is why you'll see so many different varieties of binaural beats when you look it up on YouTube or Spotify. Studies have shown that 40 hertz binaural beats can work really well for detailed oriented tasks and mental heavy lifting. Things like focused work sessions, writing and editing, analyzing data, and even decision making. This is because when we play music, we do so much more than just hear it. The neurons in our brain start firing differently to match the frequency of the music that we're listening to. So when we listen to these 40 hertz gamma beats, the internal rhythm of our brain literally changes to match and sync with the beat. We enter this gamma brain state, which is associated with focus, memory, problem solving, and even happiness. On those days where your brain feels really foggy or sluggish, then 15 hertz binaural beats can actually be really helpful in fighting the mental fatigue. This 15 hertz frequency nudges our brain into a beta state. This state speeds up our processing power and helps to maintain mental function, which makes them really helpful for tasks that require long-term focus. Things like problem solving, planning, reading, or studying. But also just make a note that being in a beta brain state for too long can actually make us feel a bit anxious and stressed. It doesn't happen for everyone, but it can for some people. So if you do start to feel this in your work sessions, then try listening to the 15 hertz binaural beats for the first 10 to 20 minutes of your work, and then just turn it off and work in silence. Now, this is a really evolving area of research. When I was looking up studies for this video, some of them said that binaural beats don't make a difference. Some of them said that they can even harm your productivity. But there are also so many studies that support their effectiveness, and I know that so many people with ADHD have really found them helpful. So just try it out, see how you feel, and go from there. You can find these really easily on platforms like YouTube and Spotify. The second type of music that will help you for deep work, and you're going to laugh at this, but it's silence. Silence is our natural state of working. Think back to Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton. They spent 95% of their work life in silence. They didn't have radios, iPods, or Spotify, let alone AirPods, and if you look at what they produced, it worked. Newton never would have discovered gravity if he had Taylor Swift or Diary of a CEO playing in his ear when that apple fell from the tree. He would not have given it a second thought, and this is the power of silence. Working in silence means your brain power is dedicated solely to what's in front of you. It doesn't have any external noise to battle with. So it's probably not surprising that almost every study found that silence led to the highest levels of concentration. It's even helpful in the hours that you're not working. Certain studies have shown that long periods of silence can increase our brain cells and improve our productivity because they allow us to actually process information that we've taken in and decompress. Now, obviously there's a problem. First, it's really hard to find silence, especially now. If you are working in an office, then there is always something going on. If you're working at home, then chances are you have family members or friends or a pet that is always disturbing you. Even libraries, those quiet signs really don't stop the whispering, so there is always some kind of noise going on. And the second issue is that our minds are never silent. So many people struggle with wandering thoughts, trying to work but having their minds racing in the background. And for people with ADHD, I know that this can be extremely frustrating. So here is my solution and our third option to use for deep work. White or brown noise. Think extremely uninteresting, continuous background noise. So the static from a TV or the hum of a fan. Research suggests that white noise may improve some aspects of mental performance in people with lower attention. What it does is it basically adds a small amount of stimulation. So it prevents our mind wandering and getting distracted by external things. sometimes. But it doesn't add too much stimulation that it distracts us from the work itself, and more importantly, it hasn't been shown in any studies to have negative effects on concentration. Personally, when I combine white or brown noise with noise cancelling headphones, I find myself getting into the zone pretty easily. There's actually one more type of music that I sometimes use for deep work if I'm in the right mood for it, and that is techno or deep house music. This technically falls under our shallow work category, so I'll talk about it in the next section, but it could be used for deep work as well, depending on how you find it personally. Now, deep work is always seen as the most challenging work, but I feel like shallow work can actually be really hard sometimes. Yes, it takes less mental effort, but so much of the time, these tasks are just so boring. Answering emails, organizing files, data entry, low stakes creative work. I absolutely hate doing emails. It stresses me out. It feels like I'm not getting anything done, and I'm so likely to procrastinate on it. A similar thing happens with data entry. My brain just starts wandering because I have absolutely no interest in what I'm working on. As it turns out, music can actually help with this. There's 3 types of music that we can use to boost our mood, raise our mental arousal, and increase our motivation without distracting us too much from the work. The first is classical, lo-fi, and techno, and I'm grouping these all together because they're quite similar. The Mozart effect is a phenomenon that was discovered in 1993, and it claims that listening to classical music, especially Mozart, can make you more intelligent. More specifically, it improves something called spatial reasoning, basically how objects fit together in space. Why is this useful? Well, spatial reasoning is actually used in a lot of knowledge work tasks, even though you might not think it. Understanding graphs, charts, and diagrams, strategic planning, and problem solving, and we now use it every single day when we're navigating remote work and Zoom conversations. Classical music is so powerful because it understands the fact that we have a limited amount of mental energy. When our attention is focused on too many different things and tasks at once, our performance on each individual task decreases. These things include sounds and thoughts, and if you've ever been a parent or worked in customer service or even gone out to a busy restaurant, then you would understand. If you simultaneously try to handle the background noise, 3 different people talking at once, all while putting away the dishes, hanging clothes, or ordering a drink, then your brain goes into overdrive. Classical music is so good because it turns down the noise. It takes out the massive beat drops. It doesn't have the bridges and the melodies and the lyrics found in modern music. It basically requires less mental energy to process, leaving more of our energy to be able to dedicate to the task that we're working on. Classical music has even been shown to stimulate the dorsal and ventral brain networks, brain areas associated with attention and cognitive benefits. So where do lo-fi and techno come in? There has been a massive increase in these recently, and I've gone through periods where I've been absolutely obsessed with lo-fi. Paired with a study with me video, I literally felt unstoppable, and despite normally hating any kind of electronic music, my brain seems to love deep house and techno, and I use these all the time to power through some writing sessions. The faster tempo of this music actually raises your heart rate, so it kind of prompts you to work faster on whatever you're doing. These genres haven't been explored that much in the research, but so far they seem to have similar effects to classical music. So although classical music is technically better and might have slightly more advanced effects, lo-fi and deep house music are really good alternatives when classical starts to get too boring. The second type of music that we can use for shallow work is instrumental music. Now, my 2022 Spotify Wrapped told me that I listened to 90,000 minutes of music, 62.5 days, and I'm actually really embarrassed to admit that and proud to say that my 2023 amount was less than a third of this. But I would be pretty confident in saying that at least 30,000 of those minutes were spent listening to instrumentals of Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey. I used to use these all the time whilst I was studying and working, and back then I had no idea on the impact that they had on my brain. As it turns out, instrumental music has a few really interesting features. First, it has no lyrics, and this is the main reason that I used instrumentals. I loved the music. I didn't always love working, so listening to music that I loved at least made the work a little bit less painful. But using instrumentals meant that I could actually focus, and the research backs this up. Like when we listen to classical music, our brain can process the noise pretty well without getting too distracted because there's no lyrics coming through and distracting us. Instrumental music also often includes pretty repetitive melodies and rhythms. If you think about the structure of your favorite song, it probably goes something like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. It probably also has a lot of the same themes and melodies repeated throughout, and our brain loves this. This consistency creates a sense of structure and rhythm in our work routines. The result is that it becomes easier to stay on track and maintain our productivity over long periods of time. There's one more interesting thing about instrumental music that makes it really useful for creative work. It evokes emotions and imagery without the need for lyrics. This means that we can stimulate our emotions, think more outside the box, and engage in deeper thinking without getting distracted by words. There is only one type of music we need to talk about in this section: music you love, which for most people means music with lyrics. I think this is how everyone started their studying journey. Being in school, hating homework, and listening to music to drag yourself through it each night. You might even still be using it to work or study now, and the research around music with lyrics is really interesting. Here's what we know for sure. Music with lyrics significantly impacts our focus. This is because of the irrelevant speech effect. As the name suggests, irrelevant speech, like talking or lyrics, disrupts our concentration and impairs our performance. Our brain struggles to filter out the external noise, so it ends up competing for attention with the task that we're trying to focus on. You're basically multitasking, which is proven to be terrible for productivity. You probably expected this, but there's a lot more to it than you might think. Listening to music with lyrics won't help you with deep, focused work. But studies show that background music increases focus for low-demanding, sustained attention tasks, aka boring tasks that require ongoing focus. This is because listening to music that we like decreases our mind wandering and increases our mental arousal. This is exactly what we need for boring tasks. The work doesn't interest us enough for us to stay focused, but the music does. The less complex the task, the more positive the impact of this music with lyrics. But there's something even better. The music that you love is your own personal motivation cheat code. We already know that music can completely change our mental and emotional state. If you listen to a good Taylor Swift song or Lose Yourself by Eminem, you can't help but feel primed for performance. Like we spoke about earlier, music that you love, especially when it's unexpected, creates a sense of novelty, and this novelty releases dopamine. Dopamine drives motivation, so you feel more motivated, and as a result, you boost your energy, productivity, and performance. This carries on even when the music stops. So what I would recommend for work is not to listen to music with lyrics whilst you're working, but to listen to it for 10 to 15 minutes before you start work. You can also use this before a run or workout, or on the way to a high energy event. Just make sure to steer clear of music with lyrics unless it's a really low, mentally demanding task. You probably have two questions right now. One, you gave more than one option for each type of work. How do I know which one to choose? And two, how do I implement this into my life? Now, let's start with the first one. I want to highlight one massive takeaway from all of this, and that is that there is no one right answer. Your preferences, personality, environment, and the task type all impact the type of music that will be best for you. 80% of the studies that I read found two things. First, listening to your preferred type of music improves performance. Second, music that you dislike leads to the lowest performance. Obviously, we all like and dislike different types of music. If binaural beats drive you nuts, then don't listen to them. If lo-fi puts you into the zone, then make the most of that. Or if instrumentals make deep work feel really easy, then keep using it. Don't be afraid to experiment. The science is so interesting, at least I think it is, but it's not going to tell you exactly what will be best for you. It's based off a bunch of people and studies with strangers that you don't even know. So always use it as a guide, but trust yourself and find what works best for you. Here is how I would recommend actioning what you've learned today. First, pick your music. Go through each category of music that we spoke about in this video. So deep work, shallow work, and motivation. Choose one type of music to use in your work sessions. If there's one that you know works best for you already, then go with that. Try this for a few days and reflect on how it impacts your productivity and your mood. Step 2 is to experiment. Try different types of music for each category. You might think binaural beats works best for you, but you won't know if you've never tried the other options. If you've never given white noise a go, then you might not even know what you're missing. So experiment and see which one feels best. Step 3 is to create your playlists. Once you know which type of music that you prefer, then you can create playlists, use other people's playlists, or save YouTube videos to easily go back to for your work sessions. You don't want to fall into the trap of procrastinating picking your music, so just find some go-to playlists and use those. Step 4 is to create consistency. Our brains love associations. If you start your work session with a specific song or a specific type of music, then your brain will start to associate that music with getting into the zone. If you start your gym session with a specific song, then your brain will start to realize that it's time to hype up and get ready for a good workout. Try creating some consistent music routines to train your brain. Step 5 is to remember that balance is key. As powerful as music is, don't forget about the balance. Our brains need silence. Too much stimulation, both during and outside of work sessions, leave us with such a noisy brain and makes it really hard to concentrate. Create space for your mind to relax and process. I promise it will help you so much in the long run. Drop in the comments which type of music you're going to use for each type of task. I'm really interested to see. And if you found this video helpful, then please remember to like and subscribe. It goes such a long way in supporting me and allowing me to keep producing more videos. I will see you next week.